Ever catch yourself scrolling through, well, it's everywhere these days, right? Internet porn. It's almost like you can't escape it. And it's easy to think, oh, glamorous, harmless even.
Yeah.
But have you ever stopped and wondered, like, what's actually happening behind all the, the perfect bodies and the smiles?
Right.
What's the reality there?
Yeah, it's easy to skim the surface, especially with how normal it's become.
Exactly.
Like, it's just there.
Yeah, and today, we're going deep, really deep into the online porn industry. And let me tell you, it gets complicated.
It does.
So to guide us, we're diving into the dark side of porn.
Okay.
And one thing that really jumps out, a lot of performers talk about this pressure to present this fantasy life, especially online, on social media. It's like they're living the dream 24/7.
It's this weird disconnect between the image and the reality, right?
Totally.
And a lot of performers, they stay silent.
Oh, I bet.
Because they're afraid, right? They could be blacklisted.
Oh, absolutely.
It's risky to speak out.
Which makes the stories of those who do speak out even more important.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about why. Why do people enter this world? And for this deep dive, we're focusing on women.
Okay.
Why women? Why do they get into this industry?
It's easy to just say, oh, consenting adults, and leave it at that.
Right.
But our source makes it really clear there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, it's way more complex.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
Okay, so the book breaks it down into three main reasons: fame, money, and sex.
Right.
But even those, like you said, they're not always straightforward.
No, they're not. Let's start with fame, right? Think about craving that recognition, maybe feeling invisible before.
Right.
Wanting to be seen. Some even see it as a path to, like, mainstream acting,
Like a stepping stone.
Exactly.
Which is so sad when you think that need to be seen often comes from a real place of hurt.
Absolutely. Past trauma, neglect, and it's used against them.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the money.
Right. And this is where things get really real, really fast.
How so?
Well, the book talks about financial desperation.
Okay.
Imagine being young, maybe facing homelessness, addiction, and this feels like the only way out.
It's like the only option.
Exactly.
Wow. The study mentioned in the book, it found that young age, financial insecurity, past sexual violence, and poor mental health were really common among performers.
It's not just ideas, right? These are real people, real lives.
Absolutely. And then there's sex, which is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Because there's this assumption that everyone in the industry, it's like they're just hypersexual.
Right. Like it's what they love.
Yeah. But as this deep dive is showing us, it's not always that simple.
No, not at all. Sometimes what looks like loving sex is actually masking something deeper.
Oh, wow.
Mental health struggles,
Right.
past trauma, even things like hypersexual disorder, which is a real thing.
It's like instead of getting support, it's almost like those vulnerabilities are used against them.
Exactly.
It's really dark.
It is.
And it really challenges this idea that it's all just simple consent,
Totally.
It reminds me of Jenna. Yeah, she's a former performer quoted in the book.
Okay.
She said, and this is really powerful, she said, "It was torture for 7 years. I was miserable. I was lonely. I eventually turned to drugs and alcohol and attempted suicide."
Wow.
And sadly, she's not alone.
No.
Which brings us to the realities often hidden behind all the glitz and glamour.
Yeah, because it's so easy to just not think about it.
Exactly.
But we're going there.
We are. The dark side of porn really digs into four major issues: STDs, prostitution, drug addiction, and even sex trafficking. Let's start with STDs.
Oh.
You would think with all the testing it wouldn't be a huge issue.
You'd hope, right?
Right.
But even with regulations, the risks are still there.
Really?
One study in LA, scary actually, found that 28% of porn actors tested positive for chlamydia or gonorrhea.
28%? That's a lot.
It is, and it makes you wonder about all the claims the industry makes,
About being safe.
Exactly.
About testing every 28 days.
Yeah, like how effective is it really?
Right.
And then there's Brittany De La Mora, another performer who shared her story. She got STDs even with the regular testing.
Wow. That's really eye-opening.
It is. It reminds us that this is real life,
Real consequences.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, STDs are really just the tip of the iceberg. Let's talk about prostitution.
It's something a lot of people don't realize is connected,
Right.
But it's a reality for a lot of performers.
It's a tough reality.
It is. And the crazy thing is, the book points this out. Sometimes sex work, like straight up prostitution,
Yeah.
it can pay more than porn. It's true. They talk about how sex workers can make a lot more per hour on average than in the adult film world.
Wow. That's a pretty stark comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you wonder why someone would choose one over the other.
Right.
And what's even scarier is this idea that some performers, they're actually pushed into prostitution.
Yeah.
Even if they started in the adult industry willingly at first.
It's like this hidden, awful side of the industry.
Right.
Our source talks about these agents, even some producers, who prey on newcomers, basically.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they'll lie about bookings, trick them into prostitution, making it seem like it's for a film shoot.
That's just, it's awful. Such a violation.
It is. It shows you how much power these people have.
And how easily it's abused. We've got STDs, prostitution, and then there's drug addiction, which we touched on earlier. This idea that it's used to cope,
Right, to deal with the trauma.
Yeah, the exploitation.
Exactly. It's like this cycle the industry creates, and it just keeps going. There's a quote from Tanya Burleson, she's a former performer, in the book that really stuck with me. She said, "You're viewed as an object, not as a human with a spirit. People do drugs because they can't deal with the way they're being treated."
Wow.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. So we're talking about dehumanization, right?
Yeah.
On top of maybe already existing trauma, the pressure to perform, and then easy access to drugs.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge factor.
So many of these performers start so young, too.
I know.
If they're just kids, often without much support, suddenly with all this money.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It really is. Okay, so we've got STDs, prostitution, drug addiction, and then there's another layer to this we need to talk about, something really heavy.
Yeah, sex trafficking.
Yeah, such a loaded term, isn't it?
It is.
And I think it's important to say up front, we're not just talking about, the stereotypical kidnapping scenario.
No, it's much broader than that.
Okay. So how does the law actually define sex trafficking?
Basically, it's any situation where someone is forced or tricked or coerced into performing sexual acts.
Okay, so when we talk about sex trafficking in the porn industry, what does that look like?
The book gives some really disturbing examples.
Yeah.
Like, imagine an actor pressured by their agent, by the director, to do things they don't want to do.
Even if they've said no.
Even then. And they might be threatened, told they'll lose work, be blacklisted if they don't go along with it.
God, it's terrifying to think about someone being put in that position. And sometimes it even goes beyond threats, right?
Right. The source talks about how filming can get physically violent.
And nobody steps in.
Sometimes, no. One performer, Jan Villarrubia, talked about producers changing scenes last minute to make them more intense without consent and refusing to pay if the actor didn't go along with it.
Oh my God.
And another actor, Regan, shared this awful story about being abused while they were filming.
While the cameras were rolling.
Yeah.
It's just, how many times did that happen that we don't even know about? It's really heavy stuff.
It really is.
But I think with all of this in mind, it's important to talk about a specific case that really brought a lot of these issues to light. The downfall of Pornhub.
Yeah, definitely. For a long time, Pornhub was like the king,
The top of the heap.
Exactly. And in 2020, get this, it was more visited than Netflix.
Wow.
I know, right? But all that reach, it came with zero regulation.
Which, as we've been seeing, creates the perfect environment for all these terrible things to happen.
Exactly. Non-consensual content, even videos that might have shown sex trafficking.
And it was all just being uploaded and shared, no problem.
Pretty much. Viewers just became numb to it, and the demand for more extreme stuff just grew and grew.
It's like this awful feedback loop.
Totally. Thankfully, a global campaign led by Trafficking Hub really shone a light on all of this.
Trafficking Hub. I've heard of them. They were the ones who really pushed Pornhub to take responsibility, weren't they?
Yeah, they were huge in exposing what was really going on. And by January of 2021, because of all the pressure from them, from activists, Pornhub, they deleted 10 million videos.
10 million? That's a lot of content.
It was a big chunk of their site, for sure.
Wow. So it wasn't just bad PR for them.
Yeah.
There were real consequences.
Oh, yeah. Big time. 7 lawsuits, international investigations, all kinds of stuff.
Like what?
Child sexual abuse, sex trafficking, you name it.
Right.
It really blew the lid off the whole thing.
Yeah, it makes you think twice,
Absolutely.
Like, what are we a part of when we watch this stuff? So where do we go from here?
It's a big question, right?
Yeah, it feels kind of overwhelming, honestly.
It's easy to feel powerless, like what can we do? But the dark side of porn, it actually offers some hope.
Oh, how so?
Well, their whole thing is we have more power than we think as consumers.
Right, our choices.
Exactly. They even quote Gandhi in the book.
Okay.
Be the change you wish to see in the world.
It's a little cliche, but...
I know, right?
Right?
but it fits. If we choose to watch less porn, it forces the industry to change.
Because the demand goes down.
Supply and demand, right?
Right. It's kind of empowering, actually.
It is. You don't have to feel powerless. Even small choices make a difference.
I like that.
There's this one part in the book, I think about it a lot, actually. It talks about this anonymous Reddit user, and they said, like, the next time you're watching something, ask yourself, is this person okay? Are they really free?
It's a powerful question.
It sticks with you.
It does. It's so easy to just click, not think about it.
Totally.
But this deep dive, it's been eye-opening, for sure. Knowledge is power. And knowing what might be behind all of it, it makes you want to do better, make better choices.
I agree. It goes beyond just us, too.
How so?
Well, we need to talk about this stuff more, push for stronger laws, support for performers,
It's about seeing everyone involved as people.
Exactly.
Not just bodies on a screen.
It's a journey, for sure.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's the takeaway I hope everyone listening will hold on to.
Okay.
The next time you're faced with that choice, to click or not, remember what we've talked about today.
Remember the real people.
Exactly. Awareness, I think that's the most powerful tool we have.
I think so too.
Thanks for diving into this with me.
Of course, it's been great.